on, everybody? Wes Hockowitz here, joined alongside Mike Spofford. Packers preview Week 15 action between the Green Bay Packers and Seattle Seahawks. A 7:20 p.m. Central start time this Sunday Night Football on NBC. Mike and I will be here for the next 10 to 15 minutes answering all of your questions on Facebook's X and YouTube. Be sure to submit those questions in there. We'll take as many of them as we can. We'll see what Mike Spofford has to think about them. But as we wait for those questions, I will start with the injury report for both the Packers and the Seattle Seahawks. Packers side, it ended up being pretty straightforward. A couple surprises, but at the end of the day, only Corey Ballentine is the only questionable player. Three players have been ruled out. Javon Bullard, Luke Musgrave, who is still on injured reserve and would have to be added back to the active roster after being designated to return from injured reserve on Wednesday and practicing in a limited capacity. And also, easy for me to say.
Yeah.
And also Jair Alexander, who was a full participant on Wednesday and Thursday. Matt LaFleur said, though, still not quite where they need him to be in terms of working his way back from that knee injury. The Packers have been here before, and as LaFleur said, it was mostly about trying to make sure they weren't in another situation like Chicago where he was only available for a certain amount of snaps, then was not able to go past those 10 snaps, and Green Bay had to make some changes there both on defense and special teams. Some really volatile offensive weapons for Seattle, and the Packers will have to do it without Jair.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Green Bay's going to go into this game now against, a pretty explosive and dangerous offense down two of their top five defensive backs with Jair Alexander and Javon Bullard not able to play in this one. So I'm sure the folks are going to ask about what will be the adjustments and who will line up where, and we can certainly get to that. But, yeah. You were hoping in the middle of the week that maybe this would be the week that Alexander could come back, but not so.
A lot going on over on the Seattle Seahawks side of things. I think the biggest thing to kind of keep an eye on, though, is Kenneth Walker III. He was doubtful for this, didn't practice. I didn't see whether or not on Friday, whether or not he went today, but did not practice on Wednesday or Thursday, doubtful. But Zach Charbonnet last week had a 51-yard touchdown run, the longest run of the season for Seattle. 134 rushing yards, I believe, overall, just under 200 total yards in that matchup, counting in his receiving yards. A very talented player, second-round pick a year ago, and if he needs to be the guy again, he's shown he can be the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I would have said it'd be a really big deal if Kenneth Walker III is not able to play in this game. After what Charbonnet did last week against Arizona, it doesn't look like it's maybe as big a deal that Walker might miss another game because Charbonnet really was the offensive star for the Seahawks in that big NFC West divisional win over Arizona. You mentioned it, the 134 rushing yards, including a 51-yard touchdown run, added some receiving yards in there. So if he needs to be the workhorse, he's proven he can produce.
The only other injury of note for the Seahawks on their 53-man roster, Trey Brown, cornerback, is going to be out for this one with a hamstring injury. You know what? Now I want to look at this because I have it in front of me. Let's see here. Kenneth Walker did not participate as well on Friday.
So he hasn't practiced all week.
He hasn't practiced all week.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, you want to jump into some of these questions?
Why not?
Again, Facebook, X, and YouTube. Submit your questions there. Mike will give you some thoughts on them. Let's start with, I believe this is Tilda on X. Looks like it's game time. Just remember, if the Pack win, they'll be calling it a Pack Attack. You haven't edited inbox yet for tomorrow, but I did have a line in there. Because somebody's like, hey, the winter warning because the Packers are going to have the white stuff going on again.
The all white. Yeah.
I said it could be a Seattle squall, even though we weren't here for it. We were in Detroit, but it sounded like that was quite the storm that
little snow squall that came through while we were in Detroit. So I guess we'll see. It sounds like honestly, it sounds like the weather in Seattle is going to be a lot like what the weather was in Green Bay before this latest cold snap hit.
Yes. I like this question. I'm glad that this got brought up from D. Lally. Nice to see Mr. Third Down Romeo Dobbs back. Love you guys, especially Mike Spofford. I'm glad you pointed that out because when I was talking about the Packers' injuries, we did learn today that both Romeo Dobbs and Evan Williams have progressed out of the concussion protocol. Edgerrin Cooper also will be back for this one. He does not have a game status, missed 3 games because of the hamstring. Another guy that Green Bay could really use, but obviously good to see Rome back. It was obviously kind of a scary situation there a couple weeks ago. Misses a few games, he's back. And then also Evan Williams, with not having Javon Bullard available, And without Jair Alexander, they're going to have to do some mixing and matching at the cornerback position.
Yeah.
But on the back end, knowing that you have Williams available, also a huge boon for this Packers defense.
Yeah, I mean, at least on that back end, you've got that tandem of Xavier McKinney and Evan Williams. Those guys are good to go. They'll be back together for this one. Not that there was anything wrong with what Zane Anderson did in Evan Williams' place in Detroit. I thought Anderson certainly held his own back there. Where the shifting will be, obviously, will be at cornerback, because Keyshawn Nixon has been playing a lot of boundary corner, probably is the best option to move to the slot to replace Bullard. And so then on the outside, you have Valentine, you have Stokes, maybe you have Ballentine. He is questionable, but we'll see if he's able to go. And then you have Robert Rochelle, a guy like that, also for depth at cornerback. So that's kind of how it's shaping up there. Great to see that Romeo came through that situation. It took a couple weeks to get through the concussion protocol, but there's a reason for the protocol, right? It's to help protect these players, and it'll be good to see him back out there in action again.
Our social team is wondering if Tilda is actually a real person or a bot. So I was supposed to ask that. So Tilda, if you're out there and you're still watching, let us know. Our social team is really wanting to understand that. I'm going to put you on the spot here with this question a little bit. This is from Austin on X.
Okay.
It's a procedural question going back to last week's game against Detroit. Sorry, I have a bit of a tickle in my throat. That's why I'm carrying water with me today. In the Lions game, did LaFleur challenge for the first down or the challenge for the ball spot? Definitely got the first down, but the spot looked too far out. Could you have won the challenge and kept the timeout, but given up the first down when they were challenging the middle of the field? I will add this.
This was the one that was early in the game?
Early in the game in the first half.
My understanding is you cannot challenge a spot of the ball unless it relates to a first down.
Correct.
So the only way he could challenge that is to say, I'm challenging that he did not get the first down.
Yes.
I believe that's the only option.
I think that's the way that works.
I think it is. Yes.
Our social media manager just said, please tell Tilda we love her. We're off the rails here on our Week 15 Packers preview to get things going. All right, this question is from, let's see here, Mobin. Does a game like this have a lot of tiebreaker implications for the playoff race? It's a good point. Packers are 9-4 entering this thing. Seattle is at 8-5. One of the reasons we've been talking about the Rams the last couple weeks, and certainly you mentioned if they didn't tie, you were actually kind of cheering for the 49ers to win that.
Yeah.
The Rams to take another loss, because that would put them at 7 losses, and Green Bay holds the tiebreaker over the Rams in that regard. There's a lot of things that come into play, but certainly when you look at the tiebreakers within the wild card matchup, and even to some extent, I guess, the division, the first one is head-to-head. So if for any reason you'd have Seattle fall out of that lead of the NFC West and then be in the wild card situation, then that's where that head-to-head comes into play with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and it also, depending on ideally for the Packers, you win this game and then you have the head-to-head over everybody in the NFC West, because the Packers have already beaten the Niners, the Cardinals, and the Rams. But it is also a conference game. Conference record could be a tiebreaker if, for example, you end up getting into, say, some kind of a tiebreaker situation with Washington from the NFC East, and the Packers didn't play Washington. The only team from the NFC East that Green Bay played this year was Philadelphia. So if you end up in some kind of a tiebreaker with them, then conference record is going to be the tiebreaker. There won't be will be the kind of the first tiebreaker, because there won't be a head-to-head to look at. So all these games certainly have those implications at all times. At the end of the day, if I'm the Packers, I'm still looking at it as, hey, you're going out there to try to win every game. You have 9 wins right now. If you can get to 11 wins, you're going to be pretty well assured of getting into the playoffs. And at 10 wins, maybe that will be enough, but 11 wins almost certainly gets the Packers in.
The thing that makes not that you want to get into this, because the Packers want to win more than 10 games. They want to try to get as many as they can the last 4 weeks. But
absolutely.
What makes the 10 really important is how much the NFC West has to play itself, and how many times yet the Rams have to face. Obviously, in the finale, they're going to take on the Seattle Seahawks. I think there's still some matchups there with the 49ers for both of them. Arizona could still be in this thing and try to claw themselves back. The way that the NFL has structured the schedule in recent years, there is a lot of divisional matchups there the last 2-3 weeks of the season. I don't have them all in front of me, but that's something to keep an eye You know what? Let's do this because this is a little bit far outside the box, but we take all questions here on Packers Preview. Nick Knack on X asks, as football guys, what will Bill Belichick's record be in his first year as head coach at the University of North Carolina?
I mean,
dude, it's kind of wild, man. That was now his name's escaping me. Tar Heels coach, long time, and then went to Texas. And then
Mac Brown?
Mac Brown. I almost said Mac Jones for a second. That's why I'm glad I caught myself.
Yikes.
It is interesting that I think Mac Brown was the oldest coach in Division I football, and then they've let him go, and now Bill Belichick is the oldest coach in Division I football, at least the FBS, and is the only one over 70 years old. Next closest, do you know who the next closest is after that?
I don't.
Take one guess. It's Big Ten, so that's why. Kirk Ferentz.
Oh, sure, yeah. I've been at Iowa.
69 years old.
Been at Iowa for a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a Belichick record?
No.
They play 12 games.
Is it 12?
Potentially, and then playoffs and all that stuff. How many wins? Give me some wins.
I don't know. He'll probably go 8-4.
I was going to say 8-4.
Yeah.
And you know what? 8-4 and then 8-5. They'll lose the bowl game. The things that we end up doing on here on Packers Preview. Okay, again, this one is on X. Oh, I love this. Has been a good episode. Too old on X. I can't hear you guys because I'm on mute at work. But do you know what else I can't hear? Haters in their hating ways. Go Pack Go is all that matters. You know what, Too Old? You can't hear this answer right now, but I'm absolutely with you. You know, that does spin me off into something, though. This week, listen to the coaches. You know, Jeff Hafley talked at the podium on Thursday night. Matt LaFleur was, relatively jovial today as well. I felt like there was a good energy this week. Now, I don't know if that's maybe the mini buy but even in the locker room, and you were at the podium, but even at the locker room in Detroit, guys just were not panicking, I think is the right term. I mean,
Yeah.
it was a disappointing loss coming out there. They obviously had huge expectations for that game. They felt like that could have not only kept them in the NFC North race, but really been a tone setter. As you and I talked about going into that game, Packers
sure.
win that. Suddenly Packers are favorites. Suddenly, the Philadelphia Eagles are looking potentially at a number 1 seed. But overall, for them losing twice in a month to Detroit, it definitely doesn't feel like the air has come out of the balloon.
No, I don't think so at all. I mean, what I sensed over the previous couple of weeks was a lot of tension, just because of going from the short week to play on Thanksgiving to then you don't get the break right after that. You have to go right into a quote unquote normal week, a Thursday to Thursday, with the 7 days between games. And it's this constant adjusting and constant cramming and trying to get ready to play. And then that second Thursday game was so big, being in Detroit against the Lions and everything. So it's a tough loss. You felt like you were in position to win it. It got away. You tip your cap to the Lions. It's like, okay, the division is kind of out of reach. You're looking at wild card. You take the weekend off to just take a deep breath and reset. And okay, there are 4 regular season games left. The Packers know what's at stake. They're in a good position. So you put in your time to prepare and you get ready to just buckle up and go play. And I think that's what these guys are looking forward to. Hey, it's a game. It's going to be prime time. Everybody's going to be watching. It's going to be loud because it's Seattle and everything else. And this is another team that is looking to trying to make the playoffs, just like the Packers are. So it's going to be the type of environment that you like and that everybody will enjoy for December football.
I 100% agree with you on that. Facebook, Max. How do you guys feel about Nixon potentially having to shift from his normal position, or do you think Coach has another plan in mind? Matt LaFleur, when he was asked about this from Jason Wilde, he said, we'll have a plan. You'll see it on Sunday
you'll
evening.
Find out on Sunday.
But just being what it is, if you're looking at where we are, right, you don't have Javon Bullard. Corey Ballentine is the backup at nickel. No one's ever really talked about that.
That's the one thing I was going to say, and Ballentine is questionable,
Yep.
and he has missed a little bit of time here, although he hasn't been out for too awfully long. But
just Miami, he got hurt at Miami, right?
was it the Thanksgiving?
I think he's only missed.
So
Detroit.
he just missed Detroit because he got hurt on Thanksgiving
Yep.
night. So, but you're right. That is the one option if they feel like it would be best to keep Keyshawn Nixon as an outside corner, then Ballentine is the guy who takes the slot,
Yep.
and Nixon stays outside. So as LaFleur said, there is a plan, but we're not going to know exactly what it is until Sunday night rolls around.
But I think Nixon, and I've talked to you about this personally, and we've written a little bit about it in Insider Inbox. Keyshawn Nixon deserves a lot of credit because this is a guy that, again, he'll tell you, he'll be the first one to say, I'm a perimeter corner. I always was a perimeter corner. It wasn't until really he got to Green Bay they started doing the nickel stuff with him. But let's be honest, Mike, that's where he got his opportunity here.
Yep.
And he played 800 snaps or whatever it was, predominantly in the nickel last season. Then you look at a game like Detroit where he's kind of in the number one cornerback spot.
Yeah.
They have injuries flare up with Bullard and Williams, and then now he has to go and run the slot in the same game in which he caught an interception. That's not an easy task to handle. And I think I really think that's a situation that he needs to get more credit for what he's been able to do. A couple more questions. Again, he's Mike Spofford. I'm Wes Hockwitz. Packers Preview brought to you by Microsoft Surface, by the way. 7:20 Central start time for the Packers matchup on Sunday Night Football with the Seattle Seahawks on NBC. I have to ask this, and our social team wants me to ask this. Are you ready?
I don't know.
Huati Johnson. First off, this actually is a really good question. I'll open with this. It's a two-part question, even though they have nothing to do with each other. Has Quay Walker developed under the Jeff Hafley scheme? I really think Quay Walker has developed nicely under the Jeff Hafley scheme.
I think he has too.
I was talking with Eric Stokes about this on Thursday, and just seeing the way that Quay is playing right now, and Quay said it himself, the more he gets out of his head, the more he plays with his instincts, the better he is. And I think we've seen that in recent weeks. And Kenny Clark deserves a lot of credit for the run defense, some of the things they've been doing. But Quay Walker, I think, also has been a real asset there. Without Edgerrin Cooper for 3 games, he's had to be one of the guys inside there. And whether you use him as a blitzer, whether he's calling the defense, whether he has to play against the run, I feel like Quay Walker's playing some of his best ball right now.
I agree. I think he is. I think he's playing really well. I think he has been a key piece to the run defense. And I know everybody's talking about the passes over the middle of the field and the linebackers. The Packers need to improve there. They know that. But where the Packers are right now with their run defense is why I think you can feel pretty good, or at least have some belief that things are going to continue to improve on defense, because if you can be consistent in stopping the run, then the rest of it can follow after that. It's a lot harder to do it in reverse.
Okay. The other question was, and this is the one that it's going to get me, who would win in a fight? 1 mouse-sized Mike Spofford or 100 Mike Spofford-sized mice?
I'm not even sure I follow.
1 mouse-sized Mike Spofford. I'm pretty sure the 100 Mike Spofford-sized mice would probably dominate.
Yeah.
Would be my. So, Hoati, I hope that that answers your question. Do you want a question from Tom Grossi on YouTube?
Well, that's been a weekly tradition, so it's part of the routine.
Can you guess how the question starts?
It starts with, I'm sure, long-time listener, first-time caller.
First-time commenter. This question is for Spoff, which is also a first. Does he have any regrets turning down the 7-figure gene modeling contract to cover the Packers? We appreciate his sacrifice.
Boy, I don't know where these stories.
7-figure.
Where these stories.
Gene modeling contract.
I don't know where these stories generate, but Tom.
Oh, Lord.
It's good to see you, brother.
It's good to see you too, Tom. Thanks for being here. On YouTube, from Dontavian Wicks worshiper, believe it or not, this question is about opinions on Dontavian Wicks. I said it last week. I'll say it again. I know the Packers lost. I know it was a disappointing loss. I thought Dontavian Wicks played his best game of the season against the Lions.
You may be right.
Really big catches down the stretch in the second half.
Yeah, you may be right about that. And we'll see. I mean, with Romeo Doubs coming back, you know, who knows how much Wicks will be involved and what exactly the game plan is going to be. But yeah, I thought last week we were starting to see the Dontavian Wicks that we saw down the stretch.
He was plucking
last
the ball.
Season. Exactly.
Aggressive hands.
Yeah.
You know, boom,
you
boom.
can see it. Yep.
Catch it, upfield.
Yep.
Catch it, turn, get yards.
Yeah, that's
what made him great last year.
That's the guy we saw toward the end of his rookie season, and if that guy is back, the Packers and the Packers offense will be better for it.
Joey Baca, B-A-C-A, Baca. I love Hafley so far, but do you think the switch to the 4-3 defense was the right move for the current personnel? I absolutely unequivocally feel like that was the right move for the personnel because it's also about the personnel the Green Bay Packers added. And they got a safety in Xavier McKinney that now has 7 interceptions, that is in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, looking at potentially getting his first Pro Bowl, looking really good for that. Maybe an All-Pro nod, we'll see. But this group, I feel like, especially, and Hafley talked about it last night, it had a very thoughtful, long press conference with the media, was talking about guys settling into their roles with this defense. And yeah, it wasn't perfect. And yes, the pass defense has things to work on. But you see guys playing more confident. You see guys playing faster within the scheme. And the other thing to keep in mind, yes, the Packers want to win a Super Bowl this year, but this is about the long term. And as far as year one has gone, the Packers are 9th in scoring defense right now. They're 13th in total defense, and they just crept into the top 10 against the run. I don't know if I could tell you the last time the Packers finished in the top 10 against the run.
When's the last time the Packers had 3 consecutive games against legitimate top flight running backs and basically gave up just 3 yards per carry over the course of 3 games? That's the foundation that I think the switch to the 4-3 has, is starting to build here. And from there, I mean, I know a lot of people are, they're disappointed with the pass rush and all that kind of stuff. Personally, I think the pass rush has taken a little bit too much flack. Go back and watch the Detroit game. Jared Goff threw like 40 passes. 30 of those 40 passes were out of his hand in 1.5 seconds or less. I don't care what you dial up for the pass rush, you are not going to affect passes that are designed to come out of his hand in 1.5 seconds or less. So I think, yes, there have been games the pass rush has let the Packers down.
Yep.
There are also games that the pass rush has done some really, really good things. And so there's been an inconsistency there. If they can find some consistent disruption and consistent production here down the stretch to go with what they're doing with the run defense, I think this defense has a chance to make some noise in the playoffs.
We got to go, but I want to ask you this question really quick. There's 3 questions I want to ask you. Try to, I think, what is the term? Try to be brief or ish. Steve on Twitter X, how much does Geno Smith run? And you and I were talking about that this week. Dude, I'm just telling you, man, just think of Jordan Love. Like, he can run if he needs to, but he's looking to throw the football. I think he has like 225 rushing yards, maybe a couple scores this year.
Yeah, that's the thing is...
It's extended plays. It's not designed.
Right, exactly. He will look to extend the play and try to make you pay downfield, but he also can take off and run, and he beat the San Francisco 49ers with 12 seconds to go in Santa Clara by scrambling to the pylon for a touchdown to win that ball game. So while he isn't going to take off and run a lot, he is a threat to do that. He is a threat to extend plays, and that's something the Packers have to be prepared for.
This question, I have to ask this question. It has to happen. Fun Lady Jr., whose name may or may not be Renee. Do you think Mike Spofford will be able to catch a fish at the Pike Place Market in Seattle this weekend? Have you ever tried?
No, I haven't tried. I've observed. I haven't actually tried myself.
You think you could?
I might be able to. Yeah, I might be able to.
All right.
That's a fun place to go, though.
Can I tell you a fun story? So I was in 7th grade. We went fishing for a school, like, if you performed well and you didn't get detentions and that, they'd let you go at the end of the semester and go do some kind of fun activity, right?
And you got to go?
And I got to go, believe it or not.
Good for you.
And we went fishing. We went ice fishing. I was one of the only people in my group. My grandfather raised me on ice fishing. My dad did a little bit of ice fishing. I knew a thing or two about ice fishing. You've worked with me long enough. I'm not a person that like walks around and be like, do this, do that. I'm the best and smartest person ever. But I knew some stuff, right? So I go ice fishing with my friends and my classmates. And I will never forget, I caught a 24-inch northern. And
ice fishing?
Ice fishing.
Nice work.
Thank you. I was one of my only classmates. We were there for a couple hours. I was one of my only classmates. And I knew what you do with northern and what you do. They're slimy fish.
Yeah.
And I'm on a bus, and I got to get back to Bayview Middle School. And I have this thing packed in snow because you have to keep it cool. I had a teacher come over and berate me saying that, you don't do that. What are you doing that for? And I'm like, bro, and I'm like 14 years old or whatever at this point. I'm like, bro, if I don't do this, this thing's going to be slimy as stuff. And
it's also going to smell by the time you get back to Bayview Middle School, too.
So the teacher, he knew what he knew. I'm like, all right, fine. I pulled it out of the snow. So you know what happened? I get on the bus. thing is sliming up like nobody's business. Ends up falling out of my hands, going down like the middle of the bus
Oh,
thing.
it slid right down the aisle?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, nice.
I'm in the back. I was a cool kid. I had to go sit in the back with all the cool people.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew what I was doing. So anyway, long story short, I wouldn't be good at probably handling fish either because I lost that all. All right. Mike Spofford, Wes Hawkowitz. Spoff, how do the Packers win this game? How do they get to 10 wins on Sunday?
Protect the football and disrupt Geno Smith.
Okay.
Those are the two. There are a lot of things
Yep.
you got to do to beat a good team like this on the road in their place. Those are the two things that are at the top of the list for me.
Other thing, too, you cannot let Zach Charbonnet, who, regardless of Kenneth Walker goes, he's still doubtful. Charbonnet is going to be the lead back in this, if not the featured guy, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
You cannot let him do what he did to the Arizona Cardinals. 2 weeks earlier, Seattle really struggled to run against the Cardinals.
Yeah.
That all changed last week, and he was and I'm sure they're going to look at some of the screen stuff, too, that's happened in the last 2 games with Green Bay, try to set up some stuff. It looks like it's become kind of a theme in the NFL this season.
Certainly.
So, something to keep in mind. It'll be very interesting. Mike and I will be there. Stay tuned to Packers.com and the Packers mobile app. An inundation of content, stories, videos, everything you could ever hope for. The Pro Bowl voting process. Check it out. Mike's One Last Look column will be up on Saturday morning on Packers.com as well. And until next time, for Mike, I'm Wes. We'll see you later.